All right, I'm going to read the next section of The Girl Who Could Fly. Chapter 9. Lily's telekinetic, Violet whispered softly. Piper was seated next to Violet in the art room, where the class, after all the excitement of the afternoon, was finally quietly occupied with basket weaving. Violet's voice was so soft that Piper didn't realize that she was being spoken to. Telekinesis means you can move stuff with your mind. Lily does that thing with the water glass to kids all the time. Violet never took her eyes from her task. You talking to me? With the exception of Bella. The only thing Piper had gotten from the kids up to this point was a hard time. Shh! Violet looked away nervously. It was rare that anyone actually caught a glimpse of Violet's eyes, which were filled with a saintly compassion so deep that she was liable to shrink or grow in response to the emotional states of the people around her. Her ever changing size caused her no end of embarrassment, and in a futile attempt to mitigate her situation, she averted her gaze at all times, hid behind her dark complexion, and spoke with a voice greater than a gentle breeze. I'm Violet. Keep your eyes down and don't look at me. Piper did as Violet asked, and after a moment, Violet started talking again in the same soft way. The kid in front of you is Smitty. He's got x ray eyes and he can see through anything, even steel. If he looks at your dress too long, he's checking out your underwear and you should belt him. And hard, too. The big girl over there is Daisy. She's the strongest person alive. Shake her hand, and she'd break all your fingers and all the bones in your arm, too, without meaning to. Don't worry, though. Not all of us do big, scary things like them. See that kid over there? The small thing? Violet nodded her head in the direction of Jasper. That little fella? Voice down, don't attract attention, Violet warned. Piper put her eyes back on her basket and listened more closely. That's Jasper. He's the youngest. No one knows what he can do. Story goes that when he came here, Nurse Toll yelled at him so bad he forgot what he can do. Piper looked at Jasper in amazement. She'd sure love to solve that mystery. What about him? Piper nodded at Conrad. Shh! Violet's fingers accidentally snapped the twig she was twisting into place on her basket, and Piper couldn't help but marvel at the fact that she also shrank several inches. That's Conrad. Don't look at him, and don't talk to him. He's trouble. Big trouble. Just stay as far away from him as you can. Conrad runs this place. Always has. He's a genius, but more than a genius. They say he's 15 times smarter than Einstein. He's so smart, they're all afraid of him. Even Nurse Toll. Conrad's mean and he does bad things. Terrible things. What sort of terrible things? Piper's mouth hung open and she looked from Violet to Conrad. Things that'll hurt you. Violet met Piper's eyes for the very first time, and Piper saw fear in her face. Was it him who did something to Bella? Violet shrugged and shrank several inches more. You reckon Bella'll be all right? Piper persisted. You don't even know what you don't know yet. And I can tell that you're the sort of girl who'll go and get herself into trouble. Get herself hurt, like Bella. Violet shook her head sadly. We have rules down here, and if you don't know them or follow them, you'll pay the price. Rule number 1, don't mess with Conrad, and if you value your health, you'll learn it fast. But Bella, listen to me. You've got to get Bella out of your head. There's nothing we can do for her now. Pepper wanted to argue with Violet, but Violet turned to her basket again and didn't say another word. Professor Mumblebee, Comrade raised his hand politely. The glue is all gone. He held up the glue container and turned it over to demonstrate its emptiness. Yeah, we're out too, chimed in the Mustafa twins. Professor Mumblebee sighed. The art room was on the third tier of the 13th level, facing the atrium, and the supply closet was on the first tier, about as far away as it could possibly be. He'd specifically arranged for double the necessary supplies to prevent just such a predicament. I see, Professor Mumblebee irritably got to his feet. You've all behave until my return. He fixed a few of the students with a pointed look. Comrade shifted the 20 stolen glue bottles that he'd hoarded in his desk and waited long enough for Professor Mumblebee's footsteps to quiet in the hall. Rising to his feet, Comrade assumed command of the classroom. Jasper, what do you have there? He sauntered through the rows, stopping at Jasper's desk, where the already tiny boy vainly attempted to make himself even smaller. This doesn't look like a basket to me. Comrade snatched up Jasper's half-finished basket and swung it back and forth at eye level in front of Jasper. Are you trying to pass this piece of rubbish off as art? You think we're stupid? You think I'm stupid? Strangled whimpers started to emerge from Jasper's throat. By this point, Nalin and Ahmed were flanking Conrad. They enjoyed a good fight and loved it when Conrad stirred up a bit of trouble. Say what, Jasper? What did you say? Conrad leaned in closer to Jasper as though he could hear Jasper saying something. You think I'm wrong? You think your basket's good? Piper's agony at being forced to witness the spectacle of a small child being picked on by someone twice his size quickly morphed into a furious rage. Fidgeting in her seat, on the verge of exploding, Piper's forearm was abruptly seized by the steadying hand of Violet. Don't do anything, Piper. Sit down. Don't look at them. But he's bullying. That ain't right. It's not your business. You can't do anything about it anyway. Conrad started bashing Jasper's basket violently against his desk, and Jasper burst into sobs. A second later, Piper could stomach it no longer and jerked her arm out of Violet's hold. She leapt to her feet. Hey, comrade, you let him be, Piper yelled. Didn't anyone ever tell you it ain't right to bully? Why don't you pick on someone your own size? Violet sighed in a way that you do when you know something bad is going to happen, but hope against hope that it won't. But it does anyway, and you realize that you always knew it would, and were stupid for having made yourself believe that you could stop it. Piper came to the other side of Jasper's desk and confronted Conrad head on, her eyes blazing. Get back his basket to him. Conrad smiled, like a cat that just swallowed a canary. I'm sorry, what did you say? Get back his basket? Are you speaking English, or is that some primitive grunting language, unga bunga? Maybe if you could actually communicate like a human being and not a hayseed, I'd return the basket. Piper shook with rage. You know what I mean. It ain't yours, and you're bigger than him. Besides, give it back. You're confused, new girl. It's clear you need guidance on exactly how things work around here. Nalin and Ahmed sneered and nodded their heads. The rest of the class waited with bated breath. Don't need no one telling me the difference between what's right and wrong, especially the likes of you. And I know a bully when I see one. And that basket you're holding doesn't belong to you. Now get it back, Piper seethed. Now, she yelled. Comrade smirked. Shucks, seeing as you put it that way, I guess I better do as you says. Conrad held the basket out at arm's length in front of Jasper. Well, what you waiting for, Jasper? Here it is. Take it. Jasper looked to Piper for guidance, and she nodded for him to take it. Terrified out of his mind, Jasper reached out one thin, shaking arm. All watched the slow journey of his lone hand until it finally arrived at the basket and tentatively moved to grasp the handle. At that very second, right before his fingers could touch the wood, Comrade suddenly snapped the basket back, flung it around, and tossed it around the room. Professor Mumblebee had opened one of the windows, but the basket avoided falling to the atrium floor by a mere 3 inches and instead got caught on the rail above the window, which hung some 13 feet above the classroom floor. You stinking piece of cow poo! But that as it may be, there it is, Piper. If you'd like Jasper to have his basket back, I invite you to retrieve it at your earliest convenience. Conrad nodded to the basket on the rail challengingly. Allow me to rephrase that so you can understand. Go fetch, girl. Come on now. Fetch. Yee-haw! Piper was fit to be tied. Don't think I won't. Don't think? What I think is that you're stupid hick who doesn't know a basket from a brick. And if there's anything to be done about it around here, I'll be the one doing it. Conrad moved around the desk and came face to face with Piper. Your fancy words don't fool no one. All that thinking that goes on in your head don't make you smart. Or didn't anyone tell you that? Piper stepped around Conrad and marched across the classroom to the window. Instantly, the class abandoned their seats and crowded around Piper as she climbed atop a desk located directly beneath the basket. Reaching to her full height, she was still well below her goal of reaching Jasper's basket. Ahmed and Nalin snickered knowingly. Undaunted, Piper stacked a chair atop the desk and climbed both the desk and then the chair, carefully rising to her full height, only to discover that once again, the basket was still out of reach. The kids murmured in anticipation as they watched Piper stack a second chair atop the desk and, with precarious movements, climbed all 3. Several times Piper lost her balance, and Conrad, with gleeful anticipation, expected her to fall, while the other children gasped in horror. Smitty leaned over to Kimber, speaking out the side of his mouth. $4 says her tailbone gets an introduction to the floor. Make it 10. You're on, Sparky. At her full height, of 2 chairs and 1 desk, Piper reached, and her fingers fluttered a mere 2 inches beneath the basket. Her feet were stretched upward, and she balanced on the very tips of her toes, but could go no further. The chair swayed dangerously. Careful, Piper, Violet urged. Lily watched through her fingers. Piper knew that Conrad was already smugly anticipating her empty-handed descent. Thinks he's so smart, but he doesn't know everything, and I'll be darned if he gets the best of me. She was going to do whatever it took to get Jasper's basket back to him and show Conrad a thing or two. Piper closed her eyes and silently said the words. Because the rest of the class was closely gathered on the foot of the desk Piper was standing on. They weren't able to see what was happening above them. It was Conrad, leaning off to the side, who saw everything. Like everyone else who saw it for the first time, it took his breath away. Piper flew. Not much. Just those 2 inches, and then she grabbed the basket and got her feet right back onto the chair. Conrad was shocked and surprised. Novel emotions for a genius for whom the unexpected was often anticipated with unerring accuracy. His facial muscles registered nothing of the electromagnetic firestorm of cognitive excitement that was instantly sparked inside his brain. In short order, meaning in less than 2 or 3 seconds tops, Conrad processed Piper's capacity to fly, generated and then reviewed all options, selected a course of action, then calculated its success to a 2% plus or minus degree. Thus accomplished, Conrad confidently set forth. Piper turned triumphantly to the class, holding the basket like a trophy above her head. She did it, Kimber shouted, excited to have won the bet with Smitty. Except for Nolan and Ahmed, the others gave out various cheers and excited gasps, especially Violet. Piper gently dropped the basket into Jasper's grateful little hands, and he smiled nervously up at her and blushed in appreciation. Looks like you owe someone an apology, Piper grinned, noticing that Conrad's face kept a stony calm as the kids turned to him. He'd been the undisputed class leader for so long. It was both sacrilegious and exhilarating to have him challenged. You mean apologize? To Jasper? Conrad strutted forward, and the children padded to allow him a path to the desk. Perhaps you're right, an apology is in order, but not to Jasper, to you. Me? Yes, you. Conrad reached the desk. For the record, I'm very sorry. Perhaps one day you'll know exactly how much. With that, Conrad reached forward and gently touched the edge of the bottom chair, upon which Piper was delicately balanced. It was the exact amount of pressure, placed at precisely the point required, as Conrad well knew, to send Piper toppling in only one direction. Whoa! Piper flailed, her arms swinging. Watch out! Violet squeaked. Piper swayed first left, then right, then left again, and to the surprise of all gathered except Conrad, at last fell backward, arms swinging like a windmill, out the open window directly behind her. A second later, she was gone. Silence. Not a child moved. So shocked were they by the outcome of events. The classroom was 3 floors above the atrium floor, a fall that would have killed any one of them. Kimber's face went bright red. Violet's face went white, and she forgot herself and all the rules completely and turned on Conrad furiously. You killed her! You killed her! Conrad sauntered away, unperturbed. You think? Still, none of the other kids moved, and absolutely no one went to the window to look out for fear of what terrible sight might be waiting for them on the hard stone of the atrium floor below. Jasper, being the youngest and most fragile, began to cry. She's dead, Lily whimpered, and they all believed it to be true except one. Then suddenly, Piper shot upward, soaring through the air. Ha! I told you ain't none too smart, Conrad, or else you'd have known well and good that you can't keep a good girl down. Conrad snorted and rolled his eyes. Everyone else was rendered mute with astonishment. She can fly? Violet almost fainted with relief. She's all right because she can fly. Man, would you look at her fly? Smitty clapped his hands together. The cheer that rose was deafening. Daisy pounded the floor, and her strength was so great the very room shook. Myrtle began clapping her hands together so fast it sounded as though she was an entire stadium of fans. And the others just cheered. She can fly! I wish I could do that! I knew she was psychic. Piper smirked at Conrad and performed a few twirls and loops for his benefit and to rub it in a little bit too. How do you like them apples, Conrad? I like 'em just fine. Please carry on. Turning his back, he returned to his seat and casually sat down. Do another twirl, Piper, Lily called out, clapping. And go faster, Kimber prompted. The kids hung out the windows rapidly cheering at Piper's every move, and Piper couldn't have been more thrilled. Not only did they accept her flying, they welcomed it. Truly, she had finally found a home. She completed a complicated twist loop combination in sheer pleasure. So great was the excitement and distraction that no one heard Professor Mumblebee's approaching footsteps, nor see him stop dead at the threshold of the class and gasp. Except, of course, Conrad. "What is going on here?" he roared. Kids scattered like buckshot, clearly exposing Piper outside the window. Piper froze in midair, a deer in the crosshairs. "Piper McCloud, you are breaking the rules!" And that's where the chapter ends.